Welcome to Sleepy Story Facts, and to this gentle bedtime story, this soft nighttime story, this relaxing story designed to help you fall asleep slowly, peacefully, and without effort. And tonight, as you settle beneath your blankets and let the day grow quiet around you, we will travel with unhurried minds toward Enceladus, a moon of Saturn known for its bright, icy surface, its deep, calm beauty, and its graceful plumes of water-rich vapor that rise from the South Polar region into space. There is nothing you need to do now except become comfortable, because this sleep story is not asking anything from you. Not concentration, not memory, not wakefulness. Only a gentle willingness to rest, while a calming narration moves beside you like a slow current under starlight. Let your shoulders unclench a little. Let your jaw soften. Let the small muscles around your eyes grow still. And take one easy breath in, then a longer, quieter breath out, as though you are setting down a bag you have been carrying all day without noticing its weight. If thoughts are still moving quickly, that is all right, because thoughts can keep drifting for a while, and you do not need to stop them or tidy them or push them away. You only need to listen loosely, the way someone might listen to rain in another room. Tonight, our gentle bedtime will unfold far from Earth, where Saturn turns in stately silence, ringed and luminous, and where one of its smallest and most astonishing moons glows like a polished pearl in the dark. Enceladus is not large, and yet it carries one of the most soothing mysteries in the solar system, because beneath its outer shell of ice lies a global ocean of liquid water, hidden below the cold brightness, as if an entire sea had chosen to sleep under a blanket of frozen light. Near its south pole, long fractures in the ice, often called tiger stripes, mark the surface like delicate brushstrokes, and from these warm seams, compared with the surrounding frozen crust, towering plumes stream outward in fine icy spray, feeding material into space with such softness that even the idea of eruption here can feel serene rather than violent. So imagine that you are approaching very slowly, not in a rush, not in alarm, but in perfect stillness, as though you have all the time in the universe. And as you draw near, the moon appears almost impossibly clean and bright, one of the most reflective worlds in the solar system, its ice returning sunlight with a pale silver glow that feels more like moonlit snow than rock. Below you stretch quiet plains, ridges, grooves, and frozen folds, all shaped over immense spans of time. And there is something deeply calming about a place that does not hurry, a place that keeps its stories in ice, in pressure, in tides, in faint warmth rising from within. Around you, there is no wind in the earthly sense, no rustling leaves, no distant traffic, only the velvet silence of space. And yet, Enceladus is not empty or lifeless in feeling, because the moon seems to breathe in its own patient way through those southern fractures, letting water vapor and icy grains drift upward like a celestial mist. You do not need to picture every detail perfectly. You can let the images come softly, half-formed, the way dreams begin, with a bright horizon here, a curved shadow there, Saturn hanging impossibly large in the sky, its rings faintly glowing like brushed silk. Perhaps you are standing in imagination on a smooth rise of frost, looking out across a sleeping landscape where the surface is cold beyond any winter night on Earth. And yet somewhere below that silent crust, the hidden ocean moves in darkness, held close by the moon's gravity and warmed by forces deep within. A secret sea tucked inside a world of ice. This is the first of our relaxing facts tonight, that a place so cold can shelter water below, and that beneath stillness there can be motion. Beneath quiet there can be depth. Beneath a frozen face there can be an unseen and gentle sea. Another soothing truth is that Enceladus sends pieces of itself outward, and scientists found that its plume material includes water vapor, ice grains, salts, and organic compounds, as if the moon were offering tiny clues from its hidden interior without asking anyone to break the ice open. And because these plumes rise into space, a passing spacecraft was able to taste that mist directly, which makes Enceladus feel less like a distant object and more like a quiet storyteller, releasing little silver sentences into the dark. As you continue to settle, let your breathing become even less deliberate, easy and natural now. And with each exhale, imagine that you are floating a little lower into rest, while above the South Pole, the plume columns lift and feather outward with graceful patience, not roaring, not rushing, just ascending in pale streams against black space. The tiger stripes themselves, those long, warm fractures, may glow faintly in your mind, not hot like fire, but gently alive compared with the surrounding ice, like fine seams in porcelain through which an ancient hidden ocean whispers to the cosmos. And because this is a nighttime story, not a lesson you must memorize, you can let each fact become softer as soon as it arrives, keeping only the feeling of it: brightness, stillness, depth, drifting mist, a moon wrapped in ice, a sea sleeping below, and Saturn keeping watch in the background like a patient lantern. Here, in this calm orbit of imagination, you may find that science does not feel sharp or technical at all, but tender, spacious, and deeply restful. A kind of gentle bedtime wonder that asks only to be listened to, until listening itself becomes drowsy, and drowsiness becomes deep sleep. Now that you have drifted closer in this gentle bedtime story, you may imagine yourself gliding above the south of Enceladus, where the surface becomes more intricate, more delicate, and more quietly alive. And below you, the famous long fractures stretch across the polar terrain like pale ribbons laid carefully into the ice, each one calm and still to the eye, yet part of a region where water-rich plumes rise from the moon into space in fine, graceful spray. There is no need to hurry over them with your mind, because this is a sleep story, a relaxing story, and the beauty of Enceladus is best felt slowly, the way one might trace frost on a winter window before dawn, noticing the soft branching lines, the bluish gleam, the silence that seems to deepen the longer you look. And as you float there in imagination, every ridge and hollow appears softened by distance, by stillness, and by the quiet knowledge that even here, in the cold outer solar system, there is movement hidden inside rest. Beneath that bright crust lies a global ocean of liquid water, concealed under ice and held in darkness. And that thought alone can be wonderfully soothing, because it suggests that even the most frozen and silent places can keep a secret center that is fluid, sheltered, and slow. Perhaps in this nighttime story, you picture that hidden ocean not as something restless, but as a great sleeping sea, heavy and calm beneath its roof of ice, moving only with the gentlest unseen rhythm, while above it, the tiger stripes rest like narrow openings in a sealed white world. And from those openings, a soft breath escapes, rising in silver threads that drift outward and then away. Scientists studying Enceladus found that its plume material contains water vapor, icy grains, salts, and organic compounds, which makes these distant mists feel almost intimate, as though the moon is quietly sharing a few luminous fragments of its inner life with the surrounding dark. And because those plumes feed material into Saturn's E-ring, there is something especially peaceful in imagining Enceladus as a small bright moon, endlessly contributing a faint veil of icy particles to the wider beauty around Saturn, not through force or noise, but through steady, patient release. If you wish, you can now let your breathing match that image, easy in, easy out, as though your own breath were joining the rhythm of those distant vapors. And with each slow exhale, the details of the day can loosen a little more, because nothing urgent can exist for long in a place like this, where even the dramatic facts arrive wrapped in hush, where time seems to widen rather than pass, and where every surface seems brushed with moonlight. Enceladus is one of the most reflective bodies in the solar system, its icy exterior sending sunlight back with extraordinary brightness. And that is why in your mind it can remain so clear, so luminous, so almost impossibly pure against the black velvet around it. You might imagine now that you are passing through the faint edge of one plume, not as an explorer collecting samples, not as a visitor disturbing anything, but only as a dreamer moving through a snowfall so fine it barely seems to touch you, each tiny grain glittering for a moment, and then disappearing into the dark, while far below the South Polar terrain keeps its own ancient composure, ridged and folded and patient beyond all ordinary weather. Cassini observations linked the most active plumes to the South Polar fractures, and those observations helped reveal Enceladus as one of the most intriguing ocean worlds known. Though here in this calming narration, the science does not press or demand attention. It simply rests beside you like a lantern turned low. The soothing thing about facts like these is that they do not need embellishment to feel dreamlike. A bright moon, a hidden sea, warm fractures in cold ice, vapor rising into open space, Saturn watching from above, and all of it unfolding in silence, so complete that your own thoughts may begin to lower their voices in response. So stay here a little longer in this gentle bedtime, suspended above the southern ice, where the long cracks below look almost like careful stitching, and the moon itself seems sewn together from brightness and mystery. And if sleep is beginning to approach you now, let it approach the same way Enceladus reveals itself, gradually, softly, through layers of stillness, until you no longer need to follow every sentence, until the words become only texture and drift, until the hidden ocean beneath the ice and the hidden quiet within your own mind begin to feel like reflections of the same deep, tranquil thing. As this sleep story continues and your breathing grows softer, imagine that your path above Enceladus becomes even more gentle, carrying you in a slow, unbroken curve from the bright south polar region toward a wider view where the moon, the plumes, the black velvet of space, and the distant architecture of Saturn can all be held together in one calm, luminous scene. And here, everything seems arranged for rest because Enceladus remains small and bright beneath you, while Saturn hangs beyond it with a grandeur so quiet that even its rings feel less like objects and more like thin strokes of light laid carefully across the darkness. There is something deeply soothing in remembering that this little moon, so cold and so remote, is not silent all the way through, because beneath its icy shell lies a global ocean of liquid water, hidden from ordinary sight and sealed beneath the frozen crust like a thought kept safely under blankets. You do not need to picture the ocean as stormy or restless. In this gentle bedtime story, it can remain broad, dark, and slow, a sleeping sea turning almost imperceptibly under many miles of ice, while above it, the surface glows with one of the brightest reflective coverings in the solar system, sending sunlight back into space with a pale, clean radiance that makes Enceladus look almost tender against the night. If you let your mind drift there for a moment, you may see the south polar fractures again, those long tiger stripes traced delicately across the ice, and from them, the fine water-rich plumes still rise, not hurried, not harsh, but like breath on cold glass, rising and thinning, and becoming part of the larger beauty around Saturn. Some of that material, gently released from Enceladus, helps supply Saturn's E-ring, so that the moon is not only resting beside the ring system, but quietly contributing to it, grain by grain, mist by mist, in a slow exchange that feels almost like a lullaby written in ice. In a way, that may be one of the most relaxing facts about Enceladus, that it does not keep all of its mystery hidden, because scientists have been able to study material from the plumes and found water vapor, icy grains, salts, and organic compounds there, as though the moon were offering tiny glimmering hints from its interior to anyone patient enough to pass through its feathered veil. That gentle sharing makes Enceladus feel less distant in the imagination. And as you listen to this calming narration, you can think of it not as a cold stone in the far dark, but as a quiet ocean world wrapped in bright ice, breathing softly through its southern seams, while Saturn keeps watch nearby. Perhaps now your view widens further, and you see the moon as if from a serene drifting station above it, where the horizon curves cleanly away, and the plumes trace faint silver fans into space, and beyond them, the rings of Saturn glow in layered bands, so broad and delicate that they seem almost unreal. And yet this is part of the same neighborhood, part of the same still celestial evening in which Enceladus moves through its orbit with measured grace. This relaxing story does not need to rush from fact to fact, because sleep often arrives best through repetition and softness, and Enceladus offers both: bright ice, hidden sea, warm fractures, slow plumes, Saturn beyond, and the sense that even in the immense cold of space, there are sheltered interiors, places where liquid water persists quietly under frozen light. If you have ever needed a gentle bedtime image for falling into deep sleep, this may be enough by itself. A moon that looks still from the outside, yet keeps an unseen ocean within, reminding you that calm surfaces can hold deep and patient movement underneath. And if your thoughts wander, let them wander here, along the pale ridges and soft shadowed grooves, across the south polar terrain where the tiger stripes lie like careful calligraphy in the ice, and out through the drifting spray that rises from those fractures into the dark. Because there is nothing alarming in this version of space, nothing sharp or urgent, only distance, silence, and a kind of enormous cosmic composure. In that composure, the mind can begin to loosen, sentence by sentence, fact by fact, until science itself starts to feel like a cradle, holding you with simple wonders: a bright moon around Saturn, a global ocean beneath ice, material reaching into space, and tiny particles joining a ring so vast that the little moon's quiet gift becomes part of something larger and more beautiful than itself. So remain here a little longer, suspended in this nighttime story between the moon below and the rings beyond, where the blackness is velvety rather than empty, where light is soft rather than glaring, and where Enceladus continues its serene work without noise, without haste, and without needing to be fully understood in order to be deeply calming. As your body settles heavier into rest, let the image simplify even more. A white moon, a hidden sea, a faint silver plume, and Saturn glowing like a lantern in the far quiet, until these details blur gently at the edges and become less like information and more like atmosphere, less like a lesson and more like a place your thoughts can lie down, loosen, and finally fall asleep inside. Now, in this gentle bedtime story, let yourself drift a little farther around Enceladus, away from the direct brightness of the South Pole, and into a slower, softer arc, where the moon's pale surface begins to meet longer shadows, because this relaxing story is not here to wake the mind with sharp details, but to let each fact arrive like a feather settling onto still water. And the first soft truth to carry with you is that Enceladus, though small, is one of the brightest worlds in the solar system. Its icy crust reflecting sunlight with such clarity that it can seem almost luminous from afar. As you float in imagination above that reflective shell, you might picture its ridges and grooves not as harsh geology, but as delicate folds in a frozen fabric, ancient lines pressed into bright ice over immense spans of time. And beneath them, hidden from view and protected under the crust, lies a global ocean of liquid water, a dark and quiet sea resting below the cold outer shell, like a secret kept gently asleep. There's something deeply calming about that idea, that inside a moon so cold and so silent, there remains an ocean, not exposed to storms or sunlight, but tucked away in steady darkness, moving only in the patient language of tides and internal warmth, while above it, the surface appears perfectly composed, almost serene enough to be mistaken for stillness. All the way through, near the southern region, the great fractures called tiger stripes stretch over the terrain, and from those long openings, waterage, plumes rise into space in fine spray, creating one of the most graceful and dreamlike scenes known. in planetary science. Yet even here, where the moon releases material into the blackness around it, everything can feel peaceful because the plumes do not need to roar in the imagination. They can simply rise, pale and steady, like breath on a winter night, climbing upward and dissolving into the dark so softly that they seem less like eruptions and more like a slow exhale from a sleeping world. Scientists studying these plumes found water vapor, icy grains, salts, and organic compounds among the material streaming away from Enceladus. And that makes the moon feel wonderfully intimate, as though it is quietly revealing the contents of its hidden interior, one luminous particle at a time. If you let that thought settle, you may notice how perfect it is for a sleep story, for a gentle bedtime, for a nighttime story meant to help you fall asleep. Because Enceladus does not give up its mysteries through force or drama, but through drifting mist, through faint silver grains, through patient repetition. And that means your own mind can follow the same pace now, releasing the day in soft layers rather than all at once. Perhaps you are passing through a region of dim plume haze now, with Saturn somewhere beyond your line of sight, and the moon below looking almost like polished frost. And around you, every tiny particle seems suspended in a stillness so complete that even motion feels restful, as though you were moving through a snowfall that had forgotten how to fall. Some of the material from Enceladus helps feed Saturn's E-ring, so the moon becomes part of a larger, quieter beauty, contributing its icy grains to a vast band surrounding the planet in a relationship so elegant that it feels almost musical. That too can be one of tonight's most relaxing facts, that a small, bright moon can offer something of itself to a ring far larger than its own horizon, and do so continuously, gently, without strain, like a calm stream joining a silent sea. In this calming narration, you do not need to hold every scientific detail, only the feeling of them. The hidden ocean below, the bright crust above, the long fractures near the South Pole, the faint plumes lifting into space, the ring gathering some of that icy dust, and the sense that nothing here is hurried, nothing here is loud, nothing here asks to be solved before it can be beautiful. Enceladus orbits Saturn in the outer solar system, where sunlight is weaker than it is near Earth. And perhaps that is part of why this whole scene feels so perfect for deep sleep. Because every glow is gentler, every contrast softer, every movement stretched into a slower rhythm. As this bedtime story continues, imagine lowering your thoughts the way the light lowers across the moon's surface, until each thought becomes longer and quieter, and each breath becomes easier to forget. And all that remains is the image of a white moon turning calmly beneath you, with a secret sea inside it. A moon whose south polar seems release a mist of water and ice into the black velvet around Saturn. There is no pressure to stay fully awake with these facts. No need to remember them in order, because the purpose of a relaxing story is softer than that. And Enceladus is kind to the tired mind, offering the same gentle shapes again and again: bright ice, sleeping ocean, silver plume, distant ring, and endless space made somehow cozy by its silence. If sleep is drawing closer now, let it do so the way Enceladus shares its mysteries, quietly and without announcement, until the moon, the plumes, the ocean, and the faint ring of Saturn all begin to blur together into one calm impression. And that impression becomes softer than words, softer than thought, soft enough at last to drift beside you into deep sleep as this gentle bedtime story continues. Imagine that your quiet path carries you outward just enough to see Enceladus, not only as a moon below you, but as a small and radiant participant in a much larger and softer scene. Because here, in the calm outskirts of Saturn's realm, the beauty of Enceladus is not limited to its bright frozen surface or its hidden ocean alone, but extends outward in the form of delicate plume material that drifts away from the moon and becomes part of Saturn's broad E-ring, so that this little world of ice seems to offer a slow and shimmering gift to the space around it. In the hush of this relaxing story, that fact can feel especially soothing, because it means Enceladus is not separate from its surroundings, not isolated in the dark, but gently connected to something wider, contributing tiny grains of ice and vapor to a ring so vast and pale that it seems almost like a whisper stretched around a planet. You may picture the moon below as a bright pearl moving through shadow, its icy surface reflecting what sunlight reaches it with remarkable clarity, until the whole body appears luminous against the black velvet beyond. And from that brightness, your mind can drift again toward the South Polar region, where the famous tiger stripe fractures rest across the ice like long, quiet seams in a frozen shell. From those southern fractures, water-rich plumes rise into space in graceful arcs and fine mist. And although the science behind them is extraordinary, nothing about them needs to feel urgent in this nighttime story, because the image itself is restful enough. A sleeping moon, a hidden sea, and a silver breath ascending into darkness without noise. Scientists have found that the material from those plumes includes water vapor, icy grains, salts, and organic compounds, which makes Enceladus feel less like a cold object far away and more like a quiet ocean world willing to release small clues about its interior in the gentlest possible way. That is one of the loveliest things about Enceladus to fall asleep to, that it shares its story in particles rather than in thunder, and that even the evidence of its hidden ocean arrives as drifting mist, as if the moon itself understands the pace of a calming narration. Beneath the frozen crust lies that global ocean, dark and sheltered under the ice, and the idea of it can settle softly into the mind now, not as something dramatic, but as something comforting, a body of water kept safe beneath a roof of brightness, moving slowly below the still white shell. Perhaps you now imagine the ocean as a deep sleeping chamber beneath the crust, while above it, the South Pole quietly opens in narrow lines and lets a fine exhale pass into space. And around that exhale, the tiny particles continue outward until they become part of Saturn's diffuse ring, joining a structure of extraordinary scale through an action so subtle it feels almost tender. This sleep story can linger there for a while, because repetition is its own form of comfort, and Enceladus gives us the same peaceful pattern again and again. Bright ice on the outside, liquid water below, long fractures near the South Pole, plumes rising softly, and ring material slowly gathering around Saturn. If your thoughts begin to wander, let them wander into that ring now, where countless fine icy particles trace a wide halo around the planet. And imagine that somewhere among them are grains once lifted from Enceladus in those quiet south polar plumes, each one beginning in darkness below the crust, rising through a fracture, and then drifting outward into a broader celestial glow. There is something deeply restful in that journey, in the idea that even a tiny particle of ice can move from hidden ocean world to planetary ring without haste, without force, carried by a process so delicate that the whole moon seems less like a machine and more like a slow breathing lantern. And as you listen, your own breathing may become gentler in response, a little slower, a little longer, as though your body is borrowing its rhythm from Enceladus itself, from the patience of its orbit around Saturn and the serenity of its pale plume haze against the dark. This is why Enceladus belongs so naturally inside a bedtime story, because its wonders are full of silence and distance and soft repetition, and because even its most astonishing facts come wrapped in calm images. An intensely reflective icy moon, a global ocean hidden under its shell, water-rich plumes venting from the south polar tiger stripes, and material from those plumes helping maintain Saturn's E-ring. You do not need to hold each fact tightly now, and you do not need to follow every word all the way to the end, because in a gentle bedtime like this, the facts are meant to loosen as soon as they arrive, becoming atmosphere rather than information, becoming the feeling of a white moon under dim sunlight, the feeling of mist rising into silence, the feeling of a ring gathering brightness grain by grain. So remain here in this soft orbital drift, where Enceladus moves below you like a polished bead of frost, and Saturn's ring stretches faintly beyond. And let the whole scene simplify once more into its calmest elements: bright ice, hidden ocean, silver plume, and the quiet joining of moon and ring in the cold outer dark. If sleep is nearing you now, let it come in the same slow way the ring receives its particles, gradually and without announcement, until the moon below and the halo beyond blur into one serene impression. And that impression grows softer and dimmer and kinder, carrying you gently toward deep sleep, as this sleep story carries you onward through the soft outer darkness. Imagine that your motion slows until it barely feels like motion at all. And in that almost weightless stillness, Enceladus turns below you once more, bright as frost under distant sunlight, its icy shell reflecting light so clearly that the little moon seems to hold a pale radiance of its own. In a gentle bedtime story like this, that brightness does not feel cold in any harsh way, but calm and clean, like moonlit snow across a silent field. And because Enceladus is covered in highly reflective ice, it can remain in the mind as a white and soothing presence against the black velvet around Saturn. You may notice that the farther you drift, the more the moon seems to simplify into a few restful truths. And one of the most calming is still the hidden one, that beneath the frozen crust lies a global ocean of liquid water, an unseen sea sleeping under the ice That ocean is one reason Enceladus has become such a treasured world in science. Yet here in this relaxing story, it can feel less like a subject of study and more like a secret chamber of stillness, tucked beneath the bright shell, moving slowly in darkness while the surface above remains composed and luminous. Let that image rest with you now, because it suits the hour so well. A moon that looks quiet from the outside, yet keeps a deep interior ocean below, reminding the tired mind that hidden calm can exist beneath every surface. As your imagined path bends again toward the south, the familiar tiger stripe fractures return to view. Long parallel markings across the polar terrain, gentle in appearance, and yet central to one of the most graceful processes known on any moon. From those southern fractures, water-rich plumes rise into space in fine sprays of vapor and icy grains. And even though that fact is extraordinary, it can enter your thoughts now with the same softness as breath fogging a winter window. Because on Enceladus, even activity seems wrapped in silence. Scientists examining the plume material found water vapor, salts, organic compounds, and tiny icy particles there, which means the moon does not keep its hidden ocean entirely to itself, but releases delicate clues from its interior into the surrounding dark. There is something especially comforting in that slow sharing, as though Enceladus were not speaking in loud declarations, but in silver whispers, letting small drifting grains tell the story of what lies below the ice. In this nighttime story, you can imagine passing through the thinnest outer veil of that plume again, where each particle glints for an instant and then floats on, joining the larger quiet of Saturn's realm. And because material from Enceladus helps supply Saturn's diffuse E-ring, those tiny grains do not simply vanish, but become part of something broader and more luminous. Perhaps that is why Enceladus feels so peaceful to fall asleep to. It is a world of connection, a bright moon with a buried ocean, a moon whose south polar vents release material into space, and a moon whose icy mist contributes to a ring surrounding the great planet nearby. As you listen, you do not need to track the science in a strict way, because this gentle bedtime is not asking for effort, only for soft attention, the kind that can hold a few calm images and let the rest drift away. White surface, hidden sea, silver plume, faint ring. Saturn itself remains nearby in the imagination, massive and serene, its ring system spread outward in delicate bands, and Enceladus moves within that wider setting like a polished lantern of ice, modest in size, yet full of quiet wonder. If your body feels heavier now, let it feel heavier, because Enceladus is a moon that invites slowing down, and every repeated fact about it seems designed for calming narration. From the brightness of its frozen shell to the dark ocean beneath, from the tiger stripes at the South Pole to the plumes that feather upward into the cold blackness, imagine now that the hidden ocean below the crust is not only dark, but sheltered, sealed away from wind and weather, resting under a ceiling of ice that has endured for ages, while above that ceiling the moon continues its patient orbit around Saturn. That image can become your resting place for a while, because few things are softer than the thought of a sea sleeping under ice in deep space, sending up only the faintest silver breath through warm fractures at the pole. And if the mind still clings to the day, gently offer it this simpler rhythm instead. Beneath the ice, an ocean; above the ice, brightness; at the South Pole, quiet fractures; from the fractures, drifting plumes; beyond the plumes, Saturn's pale ring receiving a little more icy dust. Repetition can be soothing, and Enceladus rewards repetition, because the same facts remain beautiful each time they return. Never loud, never sharp, only deeper and softer, like hearing the same lullaby from a little farther away. So as this sleep story continues, let the details become less like information and more like atmosphere, until Enceladus is no longer something you are trying to picture exactly, but a feeling of white silence, hidden water, and distant shining rings. Stay with that feeling now, and let it widen gently inside you, the way Saturn's ring widens around the planet, and the way plume mist widens into space, until the whole scene grows soft at the edges, and your thoughts grow soft with it. Then, without effort, allow the bright moon below, and the deep quiet around it, to become your gentle bedtime shelter for a little while longer. A place where science feels warm in its own quiet way, and where Enceladus keeps turning, glowing, breathing softly through the southern ice, while you drift nearer and nearer to deep sleep. As this sleep story continues, let your awareness drift into an even gentler rhythm, as though your thoughts themselves are floating above Enceladus in a calm and nearly motionless orbit, where nothing needs to be solved and nothing asks to be hurried. And below you, the moon rests in its familiar brightness, a small icy world circling Saturn, pale and reflective, almost like a pearl held in the dark. In this bedtime story, that brightness can feel soft rather than cold, because Enceladus is covered in highly reflective ice that returns the faint sunlight with remarkable clarity, allowing the moon to glow in the imagination with a clean white calm that suits a gentle bedtime perfectly. You may notice now that the more time you spend here, the more restful the central truth becomes, that beneath this bright shell, there lies a global ocean of liquid water, hidden under the crust and sheltered in darkness, as if the moon were keeping a sleeping sea folded carefully inside itself. There's something deeply soothing in that idea, perhaps because it feels so tender and unlikely. A frozen outer world with a quiet interior ocean, a place where stillness on the surface and hidden movement below can exist together without conflict. If you allow your mind to settle on that image for a moment, you may begin to feel that Enceladus is not only a subject for science, but also a kind of relaxing story written in ice and water, in silence and distance, in the calm persistence of a moon that turns around Saturn while carrying a sea beneath its frozen skin. And now, as your imagined path glides once more toward the southern hemisphere, the tiger stripe fractures return beneath you, those long and graceful lines across the south polar terrain, delicate in appearance, and yet connected to the plumes that rise from this remarkable moon into open space. Here, in the hush of this nighttime story, the plumes do not feel dramatic or fierce. They feel like the softest exhalation, a silver mist of water-rich vapor and icy grains drifting upward from the South Pole, rising slowly enough in your imagination that each plume becomes less an eruption than a breath. Scientists studying this material found water vapor, salts, organic compounds, and tiny icy particles within it. And that means Enceladus shares something of its hidden interior in the gentlest possible way, releasing clues from below the crust as fine drifting matter rather than noise. Perhaps that is one reason it belongs so naturally inside a calming narration, because even its scientific wonders arrive softly, through mist and light and patient repetition, and not through anything harsh or sudden. If you picture yourself now moving through the farthest and faintest edge of that plume veil, you may imagine each tiny grain flashing once in distant sunlight before joining the wider quiet around Saturn. And some of that material, released over time from Enceladus, helps feed Saturn's diffuse E-ring, so that this small moon contributes to a larger halo of icy beauty surrounding the planet. That fact can settle into you like a lullaby, because it suggests a kind of cosmic generosity, a moon giving off a silver mist that becomes part of something broader and more luminous than itself, all without strain, all without hurry, all in silence. In a gentle bedtime like this, repetition is not a flaw, but a comfort. And so the same soothing pattern returns again. Bright ice above, ocean below, long fractures at the South Pole, plumes rising into darkness, and Saturn's ring quietly receiving some part of that drifting spray. You do not need to remember the details in order, because this is not the kind of sleep story that asks you to stay sharply awake. It is a relaxing story meant to let the facts dissolve into atmosphere until Enceladus becomes less a list of discoveries and more a place of feeling, a white hush in deep space, a moon with a sleeping ocean, a moon whose surface shines while its interior remains hidden and calm. Perhaps Saturn is visible again now, farther off, but immense, its rings stretched wide in delicate bands, while Enceladus glides below like a small lantern of ice. And in that scene, the scale of everything becomes strangely comforting, because the darkness is velvety rather than empty. The distances are spacious rather than lonely, and the moon itself seems content simply to keep shining, keep orbiting, keep breathing its faint southern mist into space. Let your breathing follow that same slow pattern now, easy in, easy out, as though you too were part of this serene orbit. And with each exhale, you may let another piece of the day drift away, until all that remains is the simplest version of tonight's gentle bedtime: a bright moon around Saturn, a hidden ocean under ice, and a silver plume rising through stillness toward the rings. If you are growing sleepy, that is exactly right, because Enceladus is a lovely thing to fall asleep to, not only for what it is, but for how quietly it reveals itself. And now, the moon below can become softer, blurrier, more dreamlike, until its bright shell and dark ocean and pale southern mist all merge into one calm impression. And that impression, light as frost and slow as orbit, carries you onward toward deep sleep. As this gentle bedtime story continues, imagine that your orbit has become so soft and steady that it almost feels like stillness. And below you, Enceladus turns with with the same pale calm it has carried all night. A bright, icy moon circling Saturn, luminous in the dim sunlight, and quiet enough to seem as though it were made not only of ice, but of rest itself. In this relaxing story, you do not need to think of brightness as something sharp, because the icy surface of Enceladus reflects sunlight so well that its glow can be imagined as tender and clean, like moonlight resting on fresh snow, like a white hush spread carefully across a world too far away for hurry. The more you remain here, the simpler and more soothing the central truth becomes, that beneath this frozen shell there lies a global ocean of liquid water, hidden from sight and sheltered in darkness, a sea beneath ice, a sleeping depth beneath a shining skin. That hidden ocean may be one of the loveliest things to fall asleep to, because it reminds the mind that stillness on the outside does not mean emptiness within, and that even in the cold outer reaches of Saturn's realm, there can be a quiet interior world, slow and secret and held close. Perhaps you imagine that ocean now as vast and untroubled, not storming, not crashing, but resting under the crust in patient silence, while above it the white surface holds its brightness, and the moon keeps its gentle path around Saturn without the least sign of strain. As your view drifts once more toward the southern hemisphere, the long tiger stripe fractures return beneath you, those graceful lines across the south polar terrain that seem, from this distance, almost like fine threads laid into the ice by a careful hand. From those fractures, water-rich plumes rise into space, and in the calm language of this nighttime story, they can feel less like eruptions than like breathing. A soft, silver exhale from the sleeping moon, lifting upward in delicate mist and feathered grains before spreading into the dark. Scientists found that the plume material includes water vapor, icy grains, salts, and organic compounds. And that means Enceladus shares a few quiet traces of its hidden interior with the space around it, releasing clues not as noise, but as drifting particles. There's something especially soothing in that, because a moon that might have seemed distant and sealed begins to feel almost intimate, almost generous, offering its secret ocean to understanding in the gentlest form possible, through mist, through light, through fine cold spray that glimmers and goes on drifting. If you picture yourself passing through the faintest outer edge of that plume, you may imagine no impact at all, only the suggestion of tiny bright grains suspended in black velvet, each one catching distant sunlight for an instant, and then continuing outward toward the wider calm of Saturn's neighborhood. Some of that material helps supply Saturn's diffuse E-ring, and so Enceladus becomes not just a moon beside the rings, but one of their quiet contributors, giving off a silver dust that joins a far larger halo around the planet. That is such a gentle fact to carry into deep sleep, that a small bright moon can take part in something so vast without noise or effort, simply by continuing to release its pale mist from the south polar fractures into the surrounding dark. Repetition is comforting at this hour, and Enceladus offers a pattern worth returning to again and again. Bright ice above, hidden ocean below, tiger stripes at the pole, plumes rising softly, and icy grains joining the ring around Saturn. You do not need to hold these facts tightly now, because a gentle bedtime is kinder than that. And the purpose of a sleep story is not to keep every detail awake, but to let each one melt into atmosphere until science itself feels like a lullaby. So let the moon below become less a subject and more a feeling. A white lantern of ice moving quietly through deep space, holding a dark sea inside it, and breathing a fine plume into silence, while Saturn lingers somewhere beyond with its rings stretched wide and faint. If your body is heavier now, let it be heavy, because Enceladus is a place that encourages everything to slow, from the wording of a calming narration to the pace of an orbit, from the motion of drifting particles to the soft easing of your own thoughts. Let your breathing follow the moon's patient rhythm. Easy in, easy out. And with each long exhale, imagine the South Polar plumes rising and thinning, the bright crust shining and dimming, the hidden sea resting without disturbance under miles of ice. There is no rush to go anywhere from here, because this relaxing story can remain in this one quiet place a little longer, among white surfaces, silver mist, and distant rings, where the darkness feels velvety instead of empty, and the facts themselves seem to move more slowly. As sleep comes closer, the details can soften even further until only their calm remains, only the sense of a bright moon around Saturn, a sleeping ocean beneath ice, and a gentle plume rising into space like the last visible breath of a dream. And if you no longer feel like following every word, that is perfectly all right, because Enceladus does not need sharp attention to be beautiful. And now it can simply glow below you, quiet and white and far away, while the hidden sea keeps sleeping under its luminous shell, and you drift, almost without noticing, toward deep sleep. As this sleep story continues, let yourself drift in the same unhurried orbit above Enceladus, where the moon remains bright beneath you, small and serene, its icy surface reflecting distant sunlight with such clarity that it seems less like stone and more like a quiet lantern set in the dark around Saturn. In this gentle bedtime, brightness does not arrive as glare, but as softness, as a pale hush spread across ridges and plains of ice. And as you listen to this calming narration, you may picture Enceladus turning slowly below, as though it has all the time the universe can offer. The most soothing truth still waits beneath that white shell, because under the ice lies a global ocean of liquid water, hidden from sight and sealed in darkness. A sleeping sea protected below the frozen crust. There is something deeply peaceful in returning to that fact again and again, that a moon so cold on the outside can hold water below, and that beneath a still bright surface there can be quiet depth, patient motion, and a secret inner calm. If you imagine that ocean now, let it be broad and gentle, not storm-tossed, not loud, only slow and dark and sheltered, like a midnight sea resting under a roof of luminous ice, while far above it, the moon keeps circling Saturn in silence. In this relaxing story, that hidden ocean can feel almost like a mirror for sleep itself, because deep sleep also has that quality of being concealed beneath the surface, present but unseen, waiting quietly below the last bright thoughts of the day. Beneath you, the south polar region comes softly back into view. And there, the long tiger stripe fractures stretch across the ice in parallel lines. Delicate from this distance, like careful threads laid into white fabric, these fractures are not merely marks on the surface, because they are closely connected to the graceful plumes that rise from Enceladus into space, carrying water-rich vapor and icy grains away from the moon in fine silver sprays. Yet even this remarkable activity feels gentle in a nighttime story like this one, because the plumes can be imagined as the soft breath of the moon, a pale exhale lifting into black velvet, thinning and widening as it drifts farther from the South Pole. Scientists studying those plumes found water vapor, salts, organic compounds, and tiny ice grains in the material, which means Enceladus reveals hints of its hidden interior through drifting particles rather than through anything harsh or sudden. That alone is a lovely thing to fall asleep to, that the moon shares its secrets softly, not by breaking the silence, but by adding to it, letting fine mist and frozen grains speak on its behalf. Perhaps now, in the slow rhythm of this bedtime story, you pass once more through the faint outer edge of the plume field, where every particle glimmers for only an instant before joining the surrounding calm, and where motion itself seems to have become drowsy. Some of that material goes on to help supply Saturn's E-ring, so that Enceladus becomes part of something wider than itself, contributing a delicate stream of icy matter to a broad and diffuse ring around the planet. There is something immensely restful in that relationship, because it means this small, bright moon is not alone in the darkness, but quietly connected to Saturn's greater beauty, offering a silver gift grain by grain. As this gentle bedtime continues, you do not need to collect the facts carefully or arrange them in order, because this is not a lesson demanding attention, but a sleep story inviting release. And so the facts may wash over you in the same peaceful pattern. Once again, bright ice above, hidden ocean below, tiger stripes at the South Pole, plumes rising softly, and ring material gathering farther out around Saturn. Repetition can be a kindness at the edge of sleep, and Enceladus seems made for that kindness, because the more often its truths return, the softer they become, until the science itself begins to feel like a lullaby spoken very far away. Perhaps Saturn is visible again in your imagination now, immense and patient, its rings stretched into thin luminous bands, while below you Enceladus continues its quiet orbit, a white world carrying a dark sea inside it, and breathing out a mist from the southern ice. In that image, everything is slow enough for rest. The moon, the ring, the plume, the hidden water, and even your own breathing, which may now lengthen without effort, as though your body has borrowed the pace of this distant, icy world. Let the words become softer now, and let the facts become simpler, until you need hold only the feeling of Enceladus rather than its details. The feeling of a pale moon around Saturn, luminous ice on the outside, a sleeping ocean within, and a faint silver breath rising into space. If thoughts from the day still come and go, let them drift past the way icy grains drift from the plume into the ring, with no need to stop them and no need to follow them very far. This relaxing story can remain here a little longer in the white quiet between ocean and ring, where nothing rushes and nothing insists, where science feels tender and far away, and where Enceladus keeps shining with calm certainty beneath the dark. And as you settle even deeper, the moon below may blur at the edges, the plume may turn to mist, the ring may become only a pale band of light, until all of it softens into one final sleepy impression: a bright shell, a hidden sea, a slow exhale into silence, and a peaceful path toward deep sleep. As this gentle bedtime story continues, let your mind remain in the same soft orbit above Enceladus, where the moon still glows beneath you with a pale and restful brightness, its icy surface reflecting distant sunlight so clearly that it seems almost like a white lantern suspended in Saturn's quiet domain. In this calming narration, nothing needs to change quickly, because Enceladus itself offers a kind of peaceful repetition, the same soothing truths returning again and again, each time softer than before. Bright ice on the outside, a hidden global ocean below, long fractures near the South Pole, and delicate plumes lifting into space with graceful patience. If you imagine the moon now from just the right distance, you may see its surface not as hard and severe, but as tenderly luminous, a place of ridges, grooves, and frozen plains, where light rests gently on the ice and shadows gather in calm blue-gray folds. Beneath that bright crust, hidden from view and sealed in quiet darkness, lies the ocean that makes Enceladus so soothing to think about. A sea under ice, sheltered and patient, like a dream sleeping below a white blanket of frost. That fact alone can be enough to carry a tired mind toward rest, because it suggests that even the coldest and quietest places may still hold depth, motion, and secret calm within them. And that stillness on the surface does not mean emptiness below. As your thoughts drift lower and softer, let the South Polar region come into view again, where the famous tiger stripe fractures stretch across the ice in long parallel lines, delicate from above, almost like threads or seams stitched into the moon's bright skin. These fractures are closely tied to the plumes of Enceladus, and from them rise water-rich streams of vapor and icy grains, lifting away from the South Pole and drifting outward into black space with a gentleness that feels perfectly suited to a relaxing story. Here, at this sleepy pace, the plumes do not need to be imagined as forceful or loud. They can simply be the moon's slow exhale, a silver breath passing through the southern ice and feathering into the dark. Scientists studying the plume material found water vapor, salts, organic compounds, and tiny icy grains there. And so Enceladus becomes a moon that quietly reveals traces of its hidden interior without ever breaking the serenity of the scene. That is one of the loveliest things about it, perhaps, that its secrets arrive in soft forms, in mist and particles and drifting clues, as though the moon itself prefers whispering to speaking. If you wish, you can imagine yourself gliding through the faint outer edge of that plume field once more, where each grain catches a little distant light, and then continues on in silence, becoming part of the wider, calm around Saturn. Some of that material helps supply Saturn's E-ring, which means Enceladus is not simply a bright moon beside the rings, but a quiet contributor to them, releasing icy material that joins a much larger halo around the planet. There's something deeply restful in that relationship, because it makes the moon feel connected rather than isolated, woven gently into the beauty around it, offering a silver gift to the ring grain by grain. In this nighttime story, you do not need to keep every detail sharp, because the purpose is gentler than that, and the facts can now become slower and softer, returning only as a calm pattern. The mind can rest inside a bright moon circling Saturn, a hidden ocean beneath ice, warm fractures at the South Pole, pale plumes rising outward, and a ring receiving some of that drifting frost. Repetition itself begins to feel like part of the orbit, and Enceladus seems especially kind to repetition, because every time the same truth returns, it feels less like information and more like atmosphere, less like science to memorize and more like a place to rest. Perhaps Saturn is visible again now, immense and still, its rings stretching in delicate bands across the darkness, while below you Enceladus remains modest and radiant, a smaller world whose quiet wonders are no less beautiful for being subtle. Let your breathing follow that same subtle rhythm now, easy in and easy out, while the moon continues its patient path around Saturn, and the southern plumes continue their soft ascent into space. Beneath the crust, the ocean remains hidden. Above the crust, the ice remains bright. And between them, the story of Enceladus unfolds slowly enough for sleep, like a lullaby made of frost, distance, and silence. If any thought from the day still lingers, let it pass the way plume particles pass into the ring, lightly and without effort, with no need to hold it and no need to follow it very far. This relaxing story can stay here for a little while longer, in the white quiet of the southern ice, where the tiger stripes lie below like calm brushstrokes, and the plume mist rises almost too gently to notice. And as you grow heavier, sleepier, and more distant from the day, the details may blur just a little, until Enceladus becomes only the feeling of a bright shell, a hidden sea, and a silver breath drifting upward into the immense stillness around Saturn. Hold only that feeling now, because it is enough. A pale moon with an ocean inside it, breathing softly through the south polar ice, while the wider ring glows faintly beyond. And that feeling can carry you onward in this gentle bedtime toward a deeper and deeper sleep. As this gentle bedtime story continues, imagine that your orbit carries you just a little farther outward, so slowly that the motion hardly feels real at all. And from here Enceladus appears below you as a bright and restful moon, small against Saturn's vast realm, yet shining with extraordinary clarity because its icy surface reflects sunlight so strongly. In this calming narration, that brightness does not feel sharp or cold, but soft and clean, like pale winter light on untouched snow. And it makes Enceladus seem almost like a lantern of ice set carefully in the black velvet of space. Beneath that white shell, hidden from sight and sheltered under the crust, lies the global ocean that has made Enceladus so beloved in planetary science. A dark sea sleeping below the frozen surface, while the moon circles Saturn in silence. There is something especially soothing in returning to that fact again tonight, because it tells the mind that calm surfaces can hold deep and patient mysteries underneath, and that even in the cold outer solar system, there can be a secret world of liquid water tucked beneath the ice. If you let that image settle for a moment, you may picture the ocean below as broad and still, not restless or stormy, only quiet and hidden, while above it, the surface remains luminous and serene, keeping its bright composure under distant sunlight. As your path widens, the South Polar region remains the tender heart of the scene, because there the long tiger stripe fractures stretch across the ice in graceful parallel lines. And from that region water-rich, plumes rise into space in fine mist and icy grains. In this nighttime story, those plumes can be imagined as the moon's soft exhale, a silver breath lifting from the southern ice and spreading outward so gently that even the idea of venting into space becomes peaceful. Scientists found that the plume material contains water vapor, salts, organic compounds, and tiny icy particles, which makes Enceladus feel wonderfully intimate, as though it is quietly releasing hints about its hidden ocean into the darkness around Saturn. That is one of the loveliest relaxing facts about Enceladus to fall asleep to, that it shares its interior not through noise or violence, but through drifting mist, through fine grains of ice, through a process so delicate that the science itself sounds like a lullaby. And some of that material goes on to help supply Saturn's diffuse E-ring. So Enceladus is not only a moon beside the rings, but a quiet maker of part of their beauty, contributing tiny particles to a halo that stretches broadly around the planet. There is a deep comfort in that relationship, because it means the moon is connected to something larger without losing its stillness, gently offering a silver dust to the ring grain by grain, breath by breath, in a rhythm that never seems hurried. Perhaps now, in imagination, you are floating where the faint outer reaches of that ring become easier to sense, and around you there is the suggestion of a delicate snowfall that never falls, only drifts, each particle of ice suspended in silence and lit for an instant by distant sun. Somewhere far below, those grains began near the south pole of Enceladus, released from the fractures, carried outward from the plume field, and welcomed into Saturn's broader icy glow. And there is something profoundly peaceful in thinking of that long and quiet journey. This sleep story can linger there because repetition is part of its softness, and Enceladus rewards repetition so well. Bright ice above, hidden ocean below, tiger stripes at the pole, pale plumes rising softly, and the E-ring gathering some of that drifting frost around Saturn. You do not need to memorize the order now, because a gentle bedtime does not ask for that kind of effort, and the facts can simply wash over you until they become less like information and more like atmosphere, less like a lesson and more like a place your thoughts can lie down. Perhaps Saturn is visible now as a dim and majestic presence beyond, with its rings spread in delicate bands, while Enceladus continues below, as a smaller white companion, modest in size, but full of quiet wonder. Its surface remains among the most reflective in the solar system. Its ocean remains hidden under ice. Its south polar terrain remains marked by those long fractures, and its plumes continue to make it one of the most serene and remarkable worlds we know. Let your breathing follow that pattern now, easy in and easy out, while the moon below keeps its patient orbit, and the fine icy grains continue their unhurried drift into Saturn's ring. If any thought from the day still lingers, let it become light and distant, like one more particle in that silver haze, no longer heavy, no longer urgent, only drifting quietly away. With each passing sentence, let the picture simplify even more, until you need hold only the gentlest parts of Enceladus in your mind. The white shell, the sleeping sea, the soft plume, the faint ring, and if sleep is very near now, then let Enceladus become almost dreamlike, its details blurring at the edges while its calm remains. A luminous moon beneath you, a hidden ocean within it, and a quiet snow of icy grains spreading outward into the ring around Saturn. That is enough for this moment, enough for a relaxing story, enough for a gentle bedtime, enough for the mind to loosen and the body to sink a little deeper. While far away in the outer darkness, Enceladus keeps shining, keeps orbiting, and keeps breathing softly into space. As this gentle bedtime story continues, let yourself drift a little farther into the same calm orbit, where Enceladus remains below you like a white lantern in Saturn's realm, its icy surface reflecting sunlight with such unusual brightness that the moon seems softly luminous even in the cold outer reaches of the solar system. In this nighttime story, that brightness does not need to feel sharp or wakeful, because you can imagine it instead as the quiet glow of snow under moonlight, pale and steady and kind to tired eyes, resting over a world whose stillness is only part of its beauty. Beneath that bright frozen shell lies the hidden global ocean of liquid water, resting under the crust in darkness. And there is something profoundly soothing in returning to that fact once more, because it means Enceladus holds a secret sea within itself, a sleeping depth beneath a shining skin. Perhaps now you picture that ocean not as restless water, but as a calm interior chamber, broad and silent and sheltered below the ice, while the moon above it moves through its patient orbit around Saturn without hurry and without any need to announce its wonders loudly. The South Polar region comes gently back into view, and there, the long tiger stripe fractures stretch across the ice in graceful parallel lines, delicate in appearance, and yet linked to one of the most remarkable and peaceful scenes in the solar system: the water-rich plumes that rise from Enceladus into space. In the soft rhythm of this relaxing story, those plumes can be imagined as the moon's quiet exhale, a silver mist of vapor and icy grains lifting from the southern ice and drifting outward so tenderly that even an eruption becomes something serene. Scientists found that this plume material contains water vapor, salts, organic compounds, and tiny ice grains. And because of that, Enceladus feels less like a sealed and distant object and more like a moon, willing to share traces of its hidden interior in the gentlest possible form. That alone makes it lovely to fall asleep to, because the moon does not reveal itself through noise, but through softness, through drifting particles, through a fine mist that rises and thins into black velvet around Saturn. Some of those particles go on to help supply Saturn's diffuse E-ring, so that Enceladus becomes part of a wider halo of icy beauty, contributing grain by grain to something much larger than its own small, bright body. There is a deep comfort in that image, a small moon quietly offering a little of itself to the larger ring system, not all at once, not dramatically, but with patient repetition, as if even the cosmos can practice gentleness. If your thoughts still wander, let them wander here, among the faint drifting grains, where each particle seems to hold a moment of light before passing onward into stillness, and where Saturn lingers far beyond as a calm and immense presence with rings spread in delicate bands. You do not need to remember every scientific detail now, because this sleep story is here to soften the edges of thinking. And Enceladus helps with that by offering the same peaceful pattern each time the mind returns to it. Bright ice above, dark ocean below, warm fractures near the South Pole, pale plumes rising softly, and icy dust joining the ring. Repetition becomes a kind of cradle at this hour, and the more often these facts return, the less they feel like facts to be held, and the more they feel like a place to rest. A slow arrangement of light, frost, depth, and silence. Perhaps you now imagine gliding over the southern hemisphere one last time in this chapter, watching the tiger stripes fade in and out beneath a pale wash of reflected sunlight, while the plume field rises from them in such fine and graceful arcs that the whole moon seems to breathe in its sleep. Beneath the crust, the hidden ocean remains sheltered. Above the crust, the bright ice remains still, and between them, the long fractures form a quiet boundary where the moon's secret interior reaches outward into space. That image is gentle enough to carry into deep sleep, because it asks nothing from you except to notice how soft the universe can be when seen at the right pace, and how even one of the most extraordinary moons known can feel less like a mystery to solve than a lullaby to drift beside. So let your breathing grow even easier now, and let the details loosen a little more with each exhale, until Enceladus becomes only the most restful parts of itself in your mind. The white glow of its icy shell, the sleeping sea hidden within, the silver breath at the South Pole, and the faint ring receiving that drifting frost around Saturn. If the day is still clinging to you, let it fall away the way plume particles fall away from certainty, and become part of a wider quiet, no longer urgent, no longer heavy, only distant and light. This gentle bedtime can stay here a little longer, in the white hush above the polar ice, where science feels tender and far away, and where the moon below continues to glow with calm certainty, as though it has always known how to keep stillness safe beneath its frozen light. And if you are already close to sleep, then let this final picture soften at the edges, until Enceladus is no longer a sharply seen world, but simply a peaceful feeling of brightness, hidden water, and a slow plume rising into silence, while Saturn's ring glimmers faintly beyond, and the whole scene carries you deeper and deeper into rest. As this gentle bedtime story continues, let your thoughts drift in the same soft orbit above Enceladus, where the moon remains below like a pale lantern of ice, bright against Saturn's darkness, because its surface reflects sunlight with extraordinary clarity. In this calming narration, that brightness does not need to feel cold or sharp, because you can imagine it instead as the hush of moonlight on snow, a white stillness resting over ridges and plains that have kept their silence for ages. Beneath that shining crust lies one of the most soothing truths about Enceladus: a global ocean of liquid water hidden below the ice, sheltered in darkness, while the frozen surface above remains calm and luminous. There's something deeply restful in returning to that fact again, because it means this small moon holds a sleeping sea within itself, a quiet interior world beneath a bright outer shell. Perhaps in your mind that hidden ocean is broad and still, not stormy, not hurried, only resting under the ice with the patience of a dream that has all night to unfold. Above it, the moon continues its orbit around Saturn, and the whole scene feels gentle enough for a relaxing story, for a nighttime story, for the kind of bedtime story that helps the mind loosen its grip on the day. As your view settles once more toward the southern hemisphere, the tiger stripe fractures return beneath you, those long parallel lines crossing the south polar terrain with a quiet, delicate grace. These fractures are closely linked to the water-rich plumes that rise into space from Enceladus. And in the soft rhythm of this sleep story, those plumes can feel like the moon's own slow breathing, a silver exhale lifting through the polar ice and dispersing into black velvet. Scientists found that the plume material contains water vapor, icy grains, salts, and organic compounds, which makes Enceladus feel less like a distant, frozen object, and more like a quiet world gently revealing traces of its hidden interior. That is one of the loveliest things to fall asleep to tonight, that even the science of Enceladus arrives softly, through mist and particles and drifting clues, never needing to break the serenity of the scene. If you imagine passing through the faintest outer edge of the plume field again, each grain of ice may seem to catch a little distant sunlight before drifting onward into Saturn's wider calm. Some of that material goes on to help supply Saturn's diffuse E-ring. So Enceladus is not only a moon beneath the rings, but also a quiet contributor to their delicate icy glow. There is something deeply comforting in that relationship, because it means this bright moon is gently connected to something larger, offering a silver dust to the ring grain by grain, almost like a lullaby written in frost. Repetition feels natural here, and Enceladus welcomes repetition, because the same peaceful truths return each time like soft waves. Bright ice above, dark ocean below, tiger stripes at the South Pole, pale plumes rising outward, and Saturn's ring receiving some of that drifting frost. You do not need to hold those facts tightly now, because this gentle bedtime is not asking you to memorize anything, only to rest beside these images until they become softer than information, softer than explanation, almost soft enough to become sleep itself. perhaps Saturn is visible again beyond the moon, immense and still, its rings spread in delicate bands, while Enceladus turns below you with modest brightness. A small world carrying a hidden ocean beneath its shell of reflective ice. The farther you drift into this calming narration, the more the moon seems to simplify into its most restful forms. A white surface, a secret sea, a polar mist, and a ring of faint icy light beyond. If any part of the day remains awake inside you, let it grow lighter now, as though it too were becoming one more fine grain in that soft plume. One more tiny particle moving slowly away from urgency and into quiet. The South Polar region remains especially peaceful to imagine, because the long fractures lie beneath you like careful brushstrokes in ice. And from them, the plume material rises with a grace that makes even a scientific fact feel like a gentle bedtime breath. Enceladus is one of the brightest objects in the solar system because of its icy surface, and that bright shell can now become a kind of soothing landmark for your thoughts, a place where they may rest without needing to go any farther. Beneath it, the hidden ocean remains sheltered above it. The plumes continue their soft descent around it. Saturn's realm stays wide and calm. This is why Enceladus feels so perfectly suited to a sleep story, because its wonders are full of silence, distance, repetition, and hidden gentleness, and because every relaxing fact about it seems to arrive wrapped in white light and soft shadow. So let your breathing become even easier now, and let the whole scene blur very slightly at the edges until you no longer need a precise picture. Only the feeling of a bright, icy moon circling Saturn, a sleeping ocean beneath the crust, and a silver plume rising into stillness. Hold that feeling lightly, because it is enough for this moment, enough for a gentle bedtime, enough for deep sleep, while Enceladus keeps shining below you, and the ring beyond keeps gathering its quiet snow of ice. As this gentle bedtime story continues, let yourself remain in that soft and untroubled orbit above Enceladus, where the moon still turns beneath you like a pale lantern of ice, bright against the dark, because its surface reflects sunlight with extraordinary clarity. In this relaxing story, that brightness does not need to feel sharp or wakeful, and instead, it may seem like the hush of moonlight on fresh snow, spread quietly over a world that has learned how to keep its wonders calm. Beneath that bright shell, hidden under the frozen crust, lies the global ocean of liquid water that makes Enceladus so soothing to imagine. A sleeping sea tucked beneath ice in the silent outer realm of Saturn. There's something deeply restful in returning to that fact again and again, because it offers the mind a gentle pattern to follow, reminding you that a still white surface can shelter depth below, and that even far from Earth, there can be a secret place of dark water resting in peace. If you picture that ocean now, let it be broad and quiet and almost dreamlike. Not a sea of crashing motion, but a sea of patience, held in darkness, while above it the frozen crust stays luminous and composed. This is why Enceladus belongs so naturally inside a sleep story, a bedtime story, a nighttime story meant to help you fall asleep, because its science arrives as softness, distance, hidden water, and white reflected light as your path drifts once more toward the South Polar region. The long tiger stripe fractures return beneath you, drawn across the ice in parallel lines that look delicate from above, almost like careful threads resting in the moon's bright skin. Those southern fractures are linked to the graceful plumes that rise from Enceladus into space. And in the calm language of this bedtime narration, those plumes can feel like the moon's own slow breathing, a silver exhale of water-rich vapor and icy grains passing upward into black velvet. Scientists found that the plume material includes water vapor, salts, organic compounds, and tiny particles of ice, which means that Enceladus quietly shares traces of its hidden interior with the space around it. That may be one of the most relaxing facts of all, that this small bright moon reveals itself gently, not by noise, not by sudden force, but through a drifting mist that rises from the South Pole and then softens into silence. If you imagine yourself moving through the faint outer edge of that plume field once more, each tiny grain may seem to flash with a little distant light before continuing outward, light enough to be carried without effort into the wider calm of Saturn's surroundings. Some of that material helps supply Saturn's diffuse E-ring, so that Enceladus is not only a moon orbiting near the rings, but also a quiet contributor to their wide and delicate icy glow. There is a wonderful peace in that relationship, because it makes the moon feel connected rather than isolated, as though its soft silver breath becomes part of something larger and more luminous without ever losing its calm. In this gentle bedtime, repetition itself becomes soothing, and Enceladus offers the same kind pattern each time the mind returns to it. Bright ice above, hidden ocean below, tiger stripes at the South Pole, plumes rising softly, and icy grains joining the ring around Saturn. You do not need to remember those facts precisely now, because the purpose of a calming narration is not to keep the mind alert, but to let each image dissolve into atmosphere until the science itself begins to feel like a lullaby. Perhaps Saturn is visible again beyond the moon, immense and patient, its rings spread in delicate bands, while Enceladus remains below you with modest brightness, carrying a hidden sea beneath its reflective crust. The farther you settle into this relaxing story, the more the moon seems to simplify into its most peaceful forms: a white surface, a secret ocean, a southern plume, and a faint ring gathering quiet snow in the distance. If any thought from the day still lingers at the edges of your mind, let it become lighter now, as though it too were only one more tiny grain in that silver mist, drifting free from urgency and moving slowly into calm. The South Polar terrain remains especially serene to imagine, because the long fractures seem almost still enough to be sleeping, and from them the plume field rises with such grace that even a scientific fact becomes part of a gentle bedtime rhythm. Enceladus, bright with reflective ice and quietly active at its south pole, seems made for deep sleep, because every relaxing fact about it returns you to the same peaceful truths of brightness, hidden water, soft motion, and distance. So let your breathing grow a little slower now, and let the whole scene soften at the edges until you no longer need to see it clearly, only to feel it. A bright icy moon around Saturn, a sleeping ocean under the crust, and a pale plume rising into stillness. Hold that feeling lightly, because it is enough for this moment, enough for a gentle bedtime, enough for deep sleep, while Enceladus continues its patient orbit, and the faint ring beyond keeps gathering its quiet dust of ice. As this gentle bedtime story continues, let yourself remain in the same soft orbit above Enceladus, where the moon turns below like a pale lantern of ice, bright in Saturn's distant realm, because its frozen surface reflects sunlight with extraordinary clarity. And in that quiet brightness, there is nothing sharp or urgent, only a white stillness spread over ridges and plains that seem to have all the time in the universe. Beneath that shining crust rests one of the most soothing truths we have returned to again and again tonight: the hidden global ocean of liquid water, tucked below the ice in darkness, as if Enceladus were holding a sleeping sea inside itself, a secret depth under a bright shell, a calm interior beneath a calm exterior. If you picture that ocean now, let it be wide and untroubled, not stormy, not restless, but patient and still in the imagination, while the moon above continues its measured path around Saturn, carrying its hidden water with the same quiet composure that makes it feel so perfectly suited to a relaxing story and a gentle bedtime. As your thoughts drift lower and softer, the South Polar region comes back into view, and there, the famous tiger stripe fractures stretch across the ice in long parallel lines, delicate from this distance, almost like careful threads laid into a white fabric that has been folded and refolded through deep time. From those southern fractures rise the graceful plumes that make Enceladus one of the most serene wonders in the solar system. Water-rich vapor and tiny icy grains lifting into space so softly that even the idea of venting becomes peaceful here, more like the moon breathing in its sleep than anything fierce or loud. Scientists who studied those plumes found water vapor, salts, organic compounds, and icy particles in the material. And because of that, Enceladus feels almost intimate in the mind, not sealed away from understanding, but gently willing to share traces of its hidden interior through drifting mist and fine silver spray. That is one of the reasons this nighttime story can keep circling back to the same facts without ever losing its softness, because the truths of Enceladus arrive like a lullaby: bright ice above, dark ocean below, southern fractures in the crust, and a pale plume rising outward into black velvet around Saturn. If you imagine yourself floating through the faintest edge of that plume field once more, you may sense each tiny grain catching a little distant sunlight before continuing outward in silence. And perhaps that is enough detail for now, because the mind at the edge of sleep does not need sharp pictures, only calm impressions. Some of that drifting material helps supply Saturn's diffuse E-ring, so the moon below is not only a bright world beside the rings, but also a quiet contributor to their wide and delicate glow, offering grain after grain of icy dust to a structure far larger than itself without ever disturbing the stillness of the scene. There is something deeply comforting in that relationship, a small reflective moon with a hidden sea slowly feeding a faint ring around a giant planet, as though Enceladus were participating in a cosmic act of gentleness, giving off a silver breath that becomes part of a larger beauty. In this gentle bedtime, repetition becomes its own form of shelter, and Enceladus welcomes repetition so well that each returning fact seems softer than the last, until science itself begins to feel less like explanation and more like atmosphere, less like information, and more like a quiet place where tired thoughts can rest. Perhaps Saturn is visible beyond the moon now, immense and patient, its rings stretched into thin luminous bands, while Enceladus glides below with modest brightness, carrying beneath its reflective crust the hidden ocean that has made it such a tender companion for this sleep story. The farther you settle into this calming narration, the more the whole scene simplifies into only its most restful forms. A white moon around Saturn, a sleeping sea under ice, long fractures near the South Pole, a silver mist rising gently from them, and faint ring light waiting farther out in the darkness. If any part of the day still clings to you, let it grow lighter now, as though it too were only one more tiny icy grain released from the southern plume, drifting beyond urgency and dissolving into a wider calm, with no need to hold it and no need to follow it very far. The beauty of Enceladus, after all, is not only in what it is, but in how softly it can be imagined. Bright, but not glaring, mysterious, but not alarming, distant, but not lonely, active, but never hurried. A moon whose most astonishing qualities seem naturally shaped for deep sleep. So let your breathing become a little slower, and let the whole picture blur very gently at the edges, until you no longer need a precise view of the tiger stripes, or the ring, or the icy crust, but only the feeling that somewhere far away, a bright moon circles Saturn with a dark ocean sleeping inside it, and a pale plume rising through the southern ice. Hold only that feeling now, because it is enough for this moment, enough for a relaxing story, enough for a gentle bedtime, enough for the body to grow heavy and the mind to go quiet, while Enceladus keeps shining below, keeps breathing softly into space, and keeps offering its silver dust to the faint ring beyond. And if sleep is very close now, then let this white moon become softer still, until it is only brightness, hidden water, and a slow exhale into silence. A final peaceful impression carried far out into Saturn's dark and beautiful calm. As this gentle bedtime story continues, let yourself remain in the same calm orbit above Enceladus, where the moon still turns below you like a pale lantern of ice, bright in the outer Saturn system because its frozen surface reflects sunlight with extraordinary clarity, and where that brightness feels less like glare than like quiet snowlight resting over a world that has learned how to keep its secrets softly. Beneath that luminous crust lies the hidden global ocean of liquid water we have returned to throughout the night, a dark and sheltered sea resting under the ice, tucked away in silence, while the moon keeps circling Saturn with perfect patience. There is something especially restful in that image now, because it asks so little of the mind, only to imagine a white shell above and a sleeping sea below, a calm outer brightness and a calm inner depth, each one holding the other in balance. If you picture that ocean for a moment, let it be broad and still and dreamlike, not stormy or restless, but soft in the imagination, as though even water itself has fallen asleep beneath the frozen crust. Above it, the surface of Enceladus remains bright and composed, one of the most reflective in the solar system. And so, in this relaxing story, the moon can remain clear in your mind, even as your thoughts become softer and slower. The South Polar region drifts into view once more, and there, the long tiger stripe fractures stretch across the ice in graceful parallel lines, delicate from above, almost like fine threads laid across white silk. Those fractures are linked to the water-rich plumes that rise from Enceladus into space. And in the rhythm of this nighttime story, those plumes do not need to feel forceful at all, because they can be imagined as the moon's own pale breathing, a silver exhale of vapor and icy grains lifting through the southern ice and widening into black velvet. Scientists found water vapor, salts, organic compounds, and icy particles in the plume material. And that makes Enceladus feel almost tenderly knowable, as though it reveals traces of its hidden interior in the gentlest form possible, not through noise, but through drifting mist. If your mind wants less detail now, that is perfectly all right, because the details can soften into only a few calm impressions. Bright shell, hidden ocean, southern fractures, silver plume, some of that drifting material helps supply Saturn's diffuse E-ring. So Enceladus is not only a moon beside the rings, but also a quiet contributor to their faint and delicate icy glow, offering grain after grain of frost to something larger than itself. There is a gentle comfort in that relationship, because the moon below is not alone in the darkness, but connected to Saturn's wider beauty through a process so subtle that it feels more like a lullaby than a mechanism. Perhaps now you imagine those tiny grains of ice moving away from the South Pole in silence, catching a little distant sunlight before joining the faint ring. And perhaps that long, quiet journey is enough to hold your last waking thoughts for a little while. Enceladus has become a kind companion for this bedtime story, because the same peaceful truths return each time without ever becoming harsh. Bright, reflective ice above, a global ocean below, tiger stripe fractures at the South Pole, water-rich plumes rising outward, and icy particles joining Saturn's ring. Repetition itself is soothing now, and the more these facts return, the softer they become, until science seems to blur into atmosphere, and atmosphere begins to feel like sleep. If Saturn appears in the distance again, immense and still, let it remain there only as a dim and patient guardian of the scene, with its rings stretched out in thin luminous bands, while Enceladus glows modestly below, carrying its ocean under a bright crust and releasing its faint southern breath into space. In this calming narration, nothing needs to happen quickly, and nothing needs to change very much, because deep sleep often arrives through sameness, through slow returns, through the feeling that one peaceful image can hold you safely until your thoughts no longer need to keep watch. So stay here above the polar ice, where the tiger stripes lie below like calm brushstrokes, where where the plume field rises too softly to disturb the silence, and where the hidden ocean rests beneath it, all with the patience of something ancient and unafraid. Let your breathing become a little slower now, and with each easy exhale, allow the picture to blur very gently at the edges until you no longer need a sharp moon or exact fractures or precise rings, but only the feeling that somewhere far away a bright icy world circles Saturn with a sleeping sea inside it. If any thought from the day still lingers, let it grow lighter, as though it were only one more tiny particle in the plume, released from your mind and carried outward into a larger quiet where it no longer needs your attention. This gentle bedtime can rest here a while longer, inside that white silence between surface and sea, between plume and ring, between the last wakeful thought and the first deep dream. Enceladus, with its reflective shell, hidden ocean, southern mist, and faint contribution to Saturn's ring, becomes less a distant moon now and more a peaceful feeling. A feeling of brightness held lightly over depth, of secrecy without fear, of motion without noise. And as that feeling grows softer and more distant, let it carry you the rest of the way, until the moon below is only white calm, the ocean within is only quiet depth, and the plume above is only the last slow breath of a dream, fading gently into deep sleep. As this gentle sleep story continues, let yourself remain in the same almost motionless orbit above Enceladus, where the moon turns below like a pale lantern of ice, bright in Saturn's distant realm, because its frozen surface reflects sunlight with extraordinary clarity and leaves the whole world glowing with a soft white calm. In this bedtime story, that brightness does not need to feel cold or sharp, and instead, it can settle in your mind like moonlight on untouched snow, spreading quietly across ridges, grooves, and frozen plains, until the eye no longer notices detail and only rests inside the hush of it. Beneath that luminous shell lies the hidden global ocean of liquid water that has accompanied us through the night. A dark sea sleeping under the crust, while the bright surface above remains still and serene. There's something deeply restful in returning to that truth once more, because it suggests that even the quietest surface may shelter depth below it, and that inside a small icy moon, there can be an unseen and patient world made not of noise, but of silence and slow water. If you imagine that sea now, let it be broad and untroubled, resting beneath the ice as Enceladus continues its patient orbit around Saturn, carrying its hidden interior through the outer darkness without hurry and without needing to explain itself. Once more, the South Polar region drifts gently into view, and there, the long tiger stripe fractures stretch over the ice in parallel lines, delicate from above, almost like threads laid across white silk by a hand so careful that even geology begins to feel soft. From those southern fractures, water-rich plumes rise into space in fine vapor and icy grains. And in the calm rhythm of this nighttime story, they can be imagined as the moon's own slow breathing, a silver exhale lifting through the polar ice and widening into black velvet. Scientists found water vapor, icy grains, salts, and organic compounds in that drifting material, which makes Enceladus feel strangely intimate for a world so far away, as if it were offering tiny glimmering hints about the hidden ocean below, without ever breaking the stillness of the scene. Some of that material goes on to help supply Saturn's diffuse E-ring. So the moon below is not only resting near the rings, but also quietly contributing to their faint icy glow, grain by grain, breath by breath, in a rhythm so patient that it feels like part of the lullaby itself. So in this relaxing story, you may picture Enceladus as a small, bright world that keeps giving off a silver mist into space, while Saturn waits beyond with its rings spread in delicate bands. And together, they create a scene so slow and balanced that the mind can finally stop reaching for anything more. If any thoughts from the day still cling to you now, let them drift the way those tiny icy grains drift away from the South Pole and outward toward the ring, becoming lighter, quieter, and less urgent the farther they move from the place where they began. This is one reason Enceladus belongs so naturally in a gentle bedtime, because its most remarkable truths all arrive in restful forms: a reflective crust, a hidden ocean, long calm fractures, soft plumes, and a pale ring gathering quiet frost in the distance. Perhaps Saturn is visible again, now beyond the moon, immense and patient, while Enceladus remains below with modest brightness, carrying its secret sea beneath the crust and letting its southern mist rise upward so softly that even motion seems to have fallen half asleep. You do not need to hold those images sharply anymore, because this calming narration is not asking for sharpness, only for gentleness. And so the facts can blur into a few peaceful impressions: a white moon, a dark hidden sea, a silver plume, and a ring made faintly brighter by drifting ice. Repetition has become part of the comfort now, and every time Enceladus returns in the mind, it seems simpler and kinder than before, until it is less a distant scientific wonder than a place where tired thoughts can lie down and become quiet. Let your breathing match that simplicity, easy in and easy out, while the South Polar plumes continue their slow ascent, and the hidden ocean remains sheltered beneath the bright shell, untroubled and deep and softly out of sight. In this sleep story that may be enough for deep sleep at last, the feeling that somewhere far away a moon of reflective ice circles Saturn with an unseen sea inside it, breathing a pale mist into space and sending a little frost into the ring beyond. And if the picture is fading now, let it fade gently until Enceladus is only brightness over depth, silence over motion, a last soft breath over the South Polar ice, and then nothing more than a peaceful feeling carrying you quietly downward into rest. And now, as this gentle bedtime story reaches its final chapter, let everything become softer still, as though even the words themselves are growing sleepy, because there is nowhere else to go tonight except deeper into rest, deeper into the calm white silence of Enceladus, that bright icy moon of Saturn whose reflective shell, hidden ocean, and soft South Polar plumes have carried us so peacefully through the dark. You may imagine yourself drifting now in the gentlest possible orbit, no longer traveling anywhere in particular, no longer observing with effort, only floating above a world that that seems made for deep sleep, a world where the surface shines with pale light, where long fractures rest quietly near the South Pole, and where water-rich mist rises into space in such fine and graceful streams that even motion feels like stillness. Beneath that bright frozen crust, the hidden global ocean remains tucked away in darkness, calm and sheltered and untroubled. And perhaps that is the most soothing image of all: a sleeping sea beneath a sleeping shell, a depth of quiet beneath a layer of light, as if Enceladus has been teaching one simple truth all night long: that something can be still on the outside and full of gentle mystery within. The tiger stripes below no longer need to appear sharp in your mind, and Saturn beyond no longer needs to stand in perfect detail, because now the story can let all edges soften, all distances blur, until the moon becomes a white hush, the ocean becomes a dark cradle, and the plume becomes only a pale exhale drifting upward into silence. Some of that drifting material goes on to help supply Saturn's diffuse E-ring, and even that fact can now feel less like science and more like a lullaby. A small moon giving a little frost to great ring, grain by grain, without hurry, without noise, without ever disturbing the peace. So let your breathing follow that same quiet pattern, easy in, easy out, as though your breath and the southern plumes belong to the same slow rhythm. And with each exhale, allow another thought to loosen, another memory of the day to fade, another small tension to slip away into the wider dark where it no longer needs a name. If a thought returns, let it return gently and then drift on again, the way a tiny icy grain might rise from the South Pole of Enceladus and float outward until it is carried into a wider calm around Saturn. Nothing is urgent here, and nothing needs to be remembered perfectly now. Not the order of facts, not the shape of the terrain, not the names of fractures or rings, only the feeling of this place, the white quiet of the moon, the hidden water beneath, the silver breath above, the immense stillness around it all. Let that feeling become simpler and simpler still, until Enceladus is no longer a distant world you are trying to picture, but only a calm impression resting behind your closed eyes, bright but gentle, remote but comforting, quiet in a way that makes your own mind want to become quiet too. Perhaps the moon below is turning so slowly now that you barely notice the movement, and perhaps the plume has thinned into a shimmer so faint it is almost only light, and perhaps Saturn itself has become little more than a dim, patient presence beyond, holding its rings in the dark like a soft circle drawn around sleep. In this final drift, there is no need to go closer and no need to pull away, because you have already arrived where the story wanted to bring you, to a place where science feels gentle, where distance feels safe, where repetition has become comfort, and where the mind can finally stop reaching and simply rest. Let the bright shell of Enceladus become a blanket of pale frost. Let the hidden ocean become a deep quiet underneath it. Let the tiger stripes become soft lines in a dream. And let the plumes become the last visible breath of a moon sleeping peacefully in Saturn's far and beautiful night. And now, as this bedtime story fades, you can let even those images grow dimmer until there is only softness, only stillness, only a white calm floating over dark water, only the sense that somewhere in the outer solar system, a small moon keeps shining, keeps breathing gently through the southern ice, and keeps offering its silence to the dark. You do not need to follow the story any farther than this, because it is already fading with you, sentence by sentence, breath by breath, into a quieter place where words are no longer necessary, where facts become mist, where mist becomes light, and where light becomes sleep. So rest here now, in the final hush above Enceladus, beneath Saturn's quiet light, with the hidden ocean below, the silver plume above, and the whole cold, beautiful stillness of that moon slowly dissolving into dream, until dream dissolves into deeper dream, and deeper dream dissolves into deep sleep.